BBC News. Russia has dismissed media reports that it's holding compromising information about Donald Trump. It comes after claims in America that Russian intelligence agencies have obtained personally compromising material about his business interests and his private life. Mr. Trump has strenuously denied the allegations. He responded on Twitter, saying, "Russia has never used leverage over me. I have nothing to do with Russia. No deals, no loans, no nothing." 15 minutes later, he tweeted that the intelligence agencies should never have allowed what he called fake news to leak, saying, "Are we living in Nazi Germany?" Mr. Trump is due to hold a news conference this afternoon, his first since his election last November. Our correspondent, Johnny Diamond, now reports.
In 9 days' time, he will be president. But never has a president-elect been so ensnared in controversy. The allegations that swirl around him and his aides are unverified. Explosive allegations, all denied by the man himself, of unusual sexual practices and financial impropriety. Leaked to a website. The suggestion that Russian President Vladimir Putin had material which could compromise America's new president. From Mr. Trump, a flat, loud denial.
Many people accept that Donald Trump is the president-elect, but recognize that there are issues, that there are problems, particularly with Russia, that need to be addressed. And so I think that is something that lawmakers are looking, and I think and the intelligence community would like to see Donald Trump take a more proactive approach to addressing.
Moscow's reach into the Trump campaign and the president-elect's success has been a focus of claim and counterclaim for months. The latest allegations were reportedly compiled by a former British intelligence official who was once based in the Russian capital. He is described as a credible source. Donald Trump has an extensive network of links to Russia. This beauty pageant 3 years ago, just one. He has gone out of his way to praise the Russian president. His campaign team stands accused of improper relationships with the Russian government. Gathered by political opponents to discredit Mr. Trump, the report claims that the Russian government obtained material with which to blackmail the new president. With bugged hotel rooms and clandestine meetings, the report reads like a spy thriller. One Trump associate, a lawyer, shot down an allegation almost immediately. Russia scoffed.
Fabrication of such spoof stories is an obvious attempt to damage our bilateral relations.
Washington waits for a new commander-in-chief, a man who promises to overturn the old order. A man confronted by his own spy chiefs with the most lurid of allegations. Never before has the office of a new president been under such scrutiny. Johnny Diamond, BBC News.
Well, Paul Wood is our correspondent in Washington. He's heard from the CIA himself that these allegations about the president-elect are regarded as coming from a credible source. Paul also says that Mr. Trump has previously been sceptical about information from the US intelligence agencies.
It's not the first time that he's attacked the CIA, but yes, we haven't seen language like this from him for quite some time. Let's start with what we know. It was definitely originally compiled by a former British intelligence agent, this report, a former MI6 man, and he did it for what's known as an opposition research company here in Washington, D.C. It's a company I know quite well and have visited often. They were working, first of all, for Jeb Bush's Super PAC, as it's called, in the Republican primaries, and then for an anonymous Democratic Party donor. The allegations themselves are extremely lurid, and out of fairness to Mr. Trump and anybody under the age of 18 watching, I don't think we should relate them. But here's the crucial point. I was able to send a message into the CIA at the beginning of November to ask them about these allegations. It was illegal for any official to talk to me about them, but I got a message back through an intermediary which said the allegations were regarded as credible. And more than that, there was more than a single source for them, not just this MI6 man. There was supposedly more than one tape, not just video but audio, more than one date, and not just in Moscow, but in St. Petersburg as well. Now, obviously, if the Russians have blackmail material on Mr. Trump, they're hardly going to release it. So these are necessarily allegations, but they are allegations that are regarded as credible. That's not the same as saying accurate, but they are regarded as credible by the US intelligence community.
Well, that was Paul Wood. Let's speak now to Dr. Adam Quinn, Senior Lecturer in US Politics from the University of Birmingham. The validity, the credibility of these claims, what do you make of them?
Well, I think the big flashing health warning that we need is the one that you've already had, which is that this doesn't come from intelligence work by the US government or anyone else. This is an opposition report dating from the election campaign, compiled by a retired intelligence officer, based on sources in Russia, the veracity of which we simply do not know. A lot of news organizations are looking into it right now to try and find out if these claims are true, but we just don't know if they are yet, so they have to be treated seriously for sure, because if they are true, they're quite significant, but we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves by any means.
As always in cases like this, one asks who benefits. Who, if these are valid, could be behind them?
The making of these claims, well, they wouldn't look very good for Donald Trump if they were true. Some of the claims, if they were true, that have been made are about his private, personal behavior. Unless the suggestion is that that's criminal or that actual blackmail took place, that may just be no more than embarrassing. Some other statements have been made about his business affairs or about his possible campaign collusion with Russian intelligence. If that was true, that would be a much, much more serious matter. So one would think that the report emerging into the public domain at this point would be from those who want a full and thorough investigation of Donald Trump's connections with Russia to proceed speedily.
Days before the inauguration, how does this potentially affect the presidency at the start?
Well, it's not an ideal situation to have the new president coming in under this kind of cloud. The United States is a very divided country. Even if many of these claims were proven to be true, the president has a strong constituency who I suspect would support him regardless. There are many people likewise who would be very keen to attack him using this new ammunition. In the middle, however, there are a number of Republican senators who don't have any particular party incentive to attack Donald Trump, but who are very concerned about his relationship with Russia and would like to look into this further. Maintaining his congressional majority's support is going to be a challenge if any truth does turn out to attach to these allegations.
David, it's difficult to see what laws may have been broken, but if laws have been broken and it's proved that they've been broken, does that then create problems in terms of the inauguration happening at all?
I think it's impossible to envisage a situation in which you could demonstrate verifiably that laws have been broken before we get to that point. The question will be, how do the allegations stack up if they can be properly investigated once Donald Trump is in office? One of the reasons why there's a big problem here is because Donald Trump has been very, very untransparent about his finances, about his business activities, and also there have been suggestions about Russian activity during the election campaign that should be investigated and that he's opposed to investigating thoroughly. If Donald Trump was more keen to cooperate with being transparent himself, then I think he would probably have fewer problems, unless, of course, there's something to find.
Dr. Adam Quinn, thank you very much for your time. Well, Mr. Trump will be giving that news conference later today where he's expected to address these concerns. We'll bring you that live at 4 o'clock, scheduled to get underway, but of course, whenever it starts, we'll take you straight over to that. And we're also expecting to hear from Rex Tillerson, Donald Trump's choice for Secretary of State. That's any moment now. That's the scene there live at Washington. And as soon as he takes the podium, we'll